Good morning, everybody. John Fiocco here for GAI Insights with the Gen AI News Briefing. Reading your top news, essential, important, or optional. Putting thoughts in your head, time in your day. Man, we got lots of great news today. We have everything from what's going on with the cost of models down through an amazing new interface from 11 Labs that is, I think, pretty impressive. But I like talking to robots, so I'm probably a biased person. All right. Ankaj, you give us the first article here?
Sure, John. So the first one comes from 11 Labs, and they have introduced 11 AI, their first voice assistant that takes actions.
All right, Timothy, what do you think?
I think this is probably important. I almost gave it an optional because I loved it at one level, but it is a product announcement. And in fact, in terms of capabilities, it's not even a keep up with the Joneses because while it's got voice and text, it has no image processing or image generation for its capabilities. So it's really amazing. So for demo, it's fantastic. Just but so is OpenAI's voice capability. So again, there are lots of really good voice capabilities out there. And as you, John, I love talking to these robots. I do it all the time. And I think you can even create agents using OpenAI and other things, and even Claude these days, just talking to it. So it's not earth-shattering, groundbreaking. It is really good. And 11i has a great reputation. It has more customizable voice and other things you can do. It's got MCP in it. But it is a product announcement. It's lacking image capability. So it's an everyday miracle and really interesting on the voice side. It's probably worth taking a poke at for most people, but most people aren't going to get very much further than that, is my guess, unless you're already using 11 Labs. So I would give it an important because it really is useful to see how these things work and how good the voice interaction is.
John, are you on mute?
Sorry. Ashish, where are you on this?
I rated this important. I feel this has building blocks of what I call personal assistants, right? I mean, a bunch of companies, Character AI, Inflection, they attempt personal assistants, but I feel assistants who can do action on your behalf, again, are going to be a thing for all of us, right? What this is creating is first kind of stepping stone, a bunch of tech which was not existence earlier, for example, MCP, which enables integration with external services. Voice assistants were not available earlier, and I feel Inflection, if you were early in the game, this is a step in the right direction for me. I would rate it as important.
We're headed for important here. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, important. I agree a lot with Tim. I mean, this is a product announcement. I also think this is also on the capability side and not the output veracity side. So voice to task is not the goal. Voice to task that's successfully completed that meets the user need is what we want. But important. It definitely shows where it's going. And boy, a year from now, I think a lot of these answer engines are going to be task engines. It's going to be quite exciting.
So, sorry. Important. Ankaj, headed for important. You okay with that?
Yes, John.
All right. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from MIT Tech Review, and it talks about how we can fix AI's evaluation crisis.
All right. Ashish, news or snooze? What do you think here? I don't know if Ashish heard me. Ashish, your connection's a little intermittent. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. I lost you guys a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I
Go
can
ahead.
hear you now. This is an interesting article. It's all about evals, right? I've been saying for a while that, hey, own your eval before you own your kind of model. I've been adding recently as well that, hey, eval is your IP and not the prompts, right? I mean, the marginal value of creating a prompt is pretty low right now. So owning eval is important. So this talks generally about evals for AI models, right? We know that are also kind of maxed out by AI models. The new AI models probably even know the question or the answer, hence saturated the evals that are out there. So there is need for new evals. And the point that the article is trying to articulate is, as a business, you need to own your own eval to make a decision and don't rely on kind of public evals that exist out there. So for that reason, I was split between optional and important, trending more towards optional because there wasn't anything kind of new that people probably don't understand. But maybe folks who are implementing and this concept is not well understood, it's a super important topic for them. So it's kind of split in between.
Yeah, I classify this as a whinicle, an article that whines about stuff. So I was going to go for an optional on this one. Not a lot of, I didn't think there's a lot of insight. A little bit of reporting in terms of like Xbench and other attempts here, but I was going to go optional. I don't know. Where are you on this, Paul?
I'm like triple optional. I mean, this is what
Why-
is it outsourcing?
It was a whinicle.
Right. I mean, one, is there a crisis? No. I mean, the eval, Ashish's point, that's your requirements document. Are we running around saying we don't have requirements anymore? We're just going to benchmark and pick whatever database or tool we want here. So I think this is silly. I think if you're over relying on benchmarks to understand what tool you have, to Ashish's point, you're approaching this wrong. This is not worth our minutes discussing or our AI leader looking at it. So double optional.
Tim, optional?
Oh, super essential. No, I'm kidding. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. You know what I believe about evaluations right now. Yes. So.
All right,
There we go.
optional.
Optional, John.
All right, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Google DeepMind, and it talks about the Gemini robotics on device, which is their new model.
Yeah, what'd you think, Akash?
So, John, I think this is an important one. So, what they have done is, so they have taken their Gemini 2.0 model and optimized it to run on device. So, basically, entirely on robots without cloud access. So, I think it's an important advancement in the on device AI space and also in the robotic space.
All right, we're looking at important here. Fantastic new capability, decentralized. You know, Google doing a good job here with the small models. What do you think, Ashish?
Yeah, I rated it as important for some of the reasons that Pankaj mentioned. The most important thing is we are seeing this trend towards on-device disconnected model. Yesterday, Microsoft also announced a model called Mu, which runs totally disconnected on the device, focusing on settings. I mean, so it's called a nano model, right? It's as small as that. And it's task focused. This one is probably more general and has a vision action model behind it. So we're seeing this trend of disconnected device running totally on device, and for robotics that is going to be an essential criteria. I would for anybody in robotics, this is, I would say, super important.
All righty, so we're going important here. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, no, I definitely support important. I think there's also a nuance here that I'm looking at Akash through the screens here that I think we need to also get better at. I mean, we're doing it right in the middle of the briefings for all our product buyer's guide. And a lot of people talking about small models, but we're really talking about two different categories of small models. Small models, 100% disconnected, that could be on device, and small models that aren't. And this is another one of these really important developments on these disconnected small models that go into phones and physical machines that have low energy, that are performant without being connected there, that have ways to update and bring that agent-based agency from a business logic standpoint to that physical disconnect device.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to give it importance as well. It's I define life as the ability to harvest energy from your environment, and to replicate your patterns of coherence over generations. And my guess is that small models will get us to artificial life faster than the big models. But anyway, Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think important. I think you know, well, first of all, this is another one of those. If you're in robotics, manufacturing robotics, any kind of robotics, this is essential. You got to keep your eye on this stuff. But the rest of it's important, and for everybody, take a couple of minutes just to watch these demos because it's so hard that, Alvin Toffler wrote, 50 years ago, a book called Future Shock that's still quite relevant. We just cannot ingest this stuff and really interpret it in any meaningful way because I've been involved in robotics for on and off for 50 years. And, I remember Shaky, which could barely walk, couldn't walk across a room. And then everybody was like, well, you'll never have a robot that can pick up an egg. And you watch these demos, they're zipping and unzipping Ziploc bags, they're putting fan belts on and off, they're doing things with a level of dexterity we would have thought impossible just a few years ago. And they're doing it without any kind of direct programming that we would normally have associated with robots just a decade ago. So it's just astonishing how articulate these robots are becoming. And so that's, to me, part of what makes it important is really understanding how fast this whole world is moving and how difficult it is for us to really understand that.
All right, heading for important on this one. Phenomenal. Definitely worth a look on the videos. Next, Ankaj.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from A16Z, and they talk about from demos to deals, insights for building an enterprise AI.
Yeah, and before we head into this, actually, just two things. For those watching, you can find these articles at gaiinsights.com/articles. And the other thing, Paul, I was thinking, we should have a celebrity death match on whether or not humanoid robots are going to be in the home for one of our learning labs. Okay, we've got demos to deals. My prediction is Tim is going to go optional. What do you think, Tim?
Well, John, you know me well, I guess, because yes, I'm going to say optional on this one. This is the way they would say it in the country of Ireland is no shite Sherlock, or Captain Obvious, whatever you want to say. So it's not terrible in that they're not saying anything wrong. They're just not saying anything particularly interesting. It's moats are important and you got to move fast, and they talk their book a little bit, but not as much in this article. And I'm not even sure they're right. I could debate even some of their points because everybody's like, oh, speed matters more now than ever. That depends. If you're an investor trying to get out in a hurry, it matters. If you're really trying to build a long-lasting product, you got to wait 10 years to see. Google wasn't in a rush, as I recall, and they ended up being the big winner in the search market. So we'll see. But not worth wasting your time on.
All right, we got Big O here, Ashish.
Yeah, I was kind of optional as well. I mean, the question is important in the sense enterprises. I was talking to somebody else a few days ago, and they were like, "Hey, what are the top blockers for enterprise AI adoption?" Right? And you can slice that in multiple ways. A lot of points that are being made are kind of pretty obvious, but if you dig a little deeper, then you see the AI readiness of data is not there. Is interesting, right? So you could slice the question in different ways. A lot of points that were made here, I felt were high level and superficial. So for those reasons, I thought it was optional. The only point that actually stuck with me was around the moat. That vertical AI and the data is still the moat because, again, the democratization of AI models is a great equalizer.
Yeah, although again, I agree to a certain extent, but I would also say Google's search dominance, is amazing, especially given that there is no moat effectively. They created moats of various types over time, But there is zero moat on a search engine. It takes you less than 10 seconds to switch a search engine. And the results are comparable a lot of the time. Now, they have over time created moats, like they made it harder for other people to get indexed and done all sorts of squirrely things. But at the beginning, when they first built their dominance, there was absolutely no moat. And yet, they built an incredibly dominant business.
You wouldn't find the rating system as a moat or innovative?
The PageRank algorithm itself,
Yeah, yeah,
it was better at the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot better. Of course, that's what got them
Right,
started, but that
right,
didn't give
right.
them 96% of a multi-hundred-billion-dollar market. That
Yeah,
was a long ways from we're the best right now and we've got a lead on everybody to
Yeah.
we are 96% of an incredibly large market.
yeah, I don't
And
know.
nobody ever switches
Yeah,
until now.
I would say that the economies of scale are massive in search. So I would disagree, but and the ability to serve, and also just the physical infrastructure in terms of performance, I think there's a huge capital moat for Google.
Yes, but people like Yahoo had equal capital. Microsoft had. There were plenty of companies that had the capital, not hundreds, but certainly more than one, and great interest in competing.
Yeah, but just because it's an oligopoly doesn't mean there aren't moats. You know what I mean?
Okay, I don't want to go too far
We're
down
talking on the rat hole.
Yeah,
Rat hole. This is economics, gentlemen. Okay.
I agree.
All right, talk me off. Talk me off.
I'm happy to talk more about it, but
You talked me off important. We're going optional. All right. Any dissenters on optional here? I want to try to hit a good number. All right. On to the next one. We have once again, these AWS articles are case studies are pretty good. They're getting a little more pushy on pushing product here. So what do you think here, Ashish?
Yeah, I rated this as important. I know this is another RAG implementation, but that is where most of the companies are today, to be honest, right? And a few things that this touches is initial experiments didn't yield the right results. So how did they go deeper and understand, kind of diagnose it and come back with solutions to kind of reach the levels that they wanted to? So there's a lot of good nuggets in this write up, and just like other AWS case studies, it's pretty detailed and goes so into those details. So if you are somebody who's implementing RAG, which is a large percentage, this is a good case study to kind of look at, I would say.
All right, we've got an important case study here. What do you think, Ashish? I mean, Akash, sorry.
I think important, John, as Ashish mentioned, most of the companies, the majority of the use cases around are RAG. So yeah, definitely important.
Paul?
Important.
Tim?
yeah, important. It's a another good one for the back pocket. Absolutely, and they just do a nice job of putting in the improvements and the architecture. It's nice.
Yeah, and I thought some of the process things they needed to do in terms of getting to different levels of expertise and so forth was very grand.
They get enough detail you can actually learn something.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we're going important in this. Akash.
Okay, the next one comes from Prime Intellect, and they have just introduced Synthetic 2, which is their planetary scale pipeline parallel inference for verified reasoning.
Yeah, that little video on the front, I thought that was just a total vanity project. I didn't get why they're recreating Venus on the half shell and stuff, but whatever. What do you think here, Akash?
So, John, I was between important or optional and important for this one. Optional because it doesn't have direct implications for an AI leader right now. Important because they are the company which started the decentralized LLM training. So their earlier models were focused on that, or earlier infra stack was focused on that, and now they are doing the same for reasoning set of models. So this entire data stack that they have launched. So this is this has cases of failures in reasoning and a lot of other details which someone can use to train their models in a decentralized environment. So important from that perspective, but an AI leader, I don't think they will find this useful at this point in time.
All right, Tim, where are you?
Yeah, this is to me really interesting because I've been interested in decentralized systems my entire career. And it's in fact quite surprising to me at one level that we haven't done this much more aggressively and earlier, given that we figured out how to make these processes parallel, which is the first thing you have to do if you want to run something in a decentralized manner. You have to at least break down the compute processes so that they're isolated. And parallel processes are by definition isolated, so they're perfect for this. Um, beyond that though, it's not clear where this is going to go or when. So we'll see. So I would say important, maybe, I could be twisted, my arm twisted into important because of the benefits of decentralization here and these parallel processing models. But I think the world has decided how it's going to build these things. And unless this becomes really capable of competing with closed data centers, I'm just not sure it's going to be that relevant to mainstream stuff.
Ashish, where are you on this? I think we lost Ashish. Paul, I'm assuming you're going to go optional on this. Is that right?
It's optional. It's product announcement. It's an interesting thing in the R&D lab product announcement phase. I agree with all the Tim's comments on the important trend, but for the AI leader, this is 100% optional.
Ashish, optional. You go with that? I think it's intermittent. All right, optional it is. Ankash,
Yeah,
next.
I'm optional on this. I don't know who.
We good? Awesome. All right, next, Ankash.
Optional.
Yes, the next one comes from Quantum Black by McKinsey, and it talks about the next innovation revolution powered by AI.
Yeah, I'm assigned on this one. That's a traditional chart of GDP before the Industrial Revolution. Everything. If you keep going down, I think there's some interesting charts on efficacy. I was going to rate this. I know I'm going to get grief for this. That is an interesting chart. That's the cost. Wait, go back up. The cost per increased R&D expenditures, and then if you go down, the next one is the yield on that R&D. I was going to give this an essential because I think that in so many businesses, and they go through a lot of businesses, they go through drug development, material science, aerospace, gaming, and so forth. That we're going to Jamie Yoder and I wrote an article ages ago, and we said, look, AI allows you to pick up the garbage and look at the stars, right? The notion of AI being able to automate all kinds of stuff at the low end, but then it really is a bicycle for the mind, scuba for the mind, whatever we're going to call it, at the top end. And I think that the advancements of science and the beauty of science is if you look at, anyway, my simplistic epistemology is that in the grand world of knowledge, you've got a category that I call praxis. And praxis is the ability at time A to predict something that's going to happen at time B with a high level of certainty within the constraints of human space-time. And what I mean by that is that we know, for example, an antibiotic, most of the time you put it on a certain bacteria, it kills it. You do this with plutonium, it'll create a bomb. Some of those theories don't work at the subatomic level or at the speed of light and stuff like that. But within what we think of as reality, it works. And that kind of knowledge, that ability to manipulate from time A to time B predictably, is the basis of most of the improvement in humankind. And I think we're going to continue to see that ability amplify, and it'll be not only humans and machines working together, not only creating new search spaces, like we've only examined something like less than 1% of the compounds relevant to the human body as far as we know. Same thing with materials and material science. I think we're not only going to have that, but in the early going, we start to see machines talking to machines, and whether that's in a mathematical language or some new language that they create in the context of these models. So I think we're going to see advancements like we've never seen before in ways we've never thought of before. So, and I think that this is a good compendium of that. Now, I think the whole thing could be shortened by about 30%. It's kind of, it's fluffy, not stuff. It's the body mass, the body mass index for the wording here is well above 30, and it could get down to about 25. But it's worth wading through the fat. So, what do you think here, Ashish?
I rate it as an optional article. As you said, a lot of fluff. It is a good article to kind of underscore where we are and where we are going, right? But I mean, at this point of time, I think everybody is an expert in that, right? I asked ChatGPT to summarize it, gave me 3 points, and none of those points were like radically new stuff that we already know. So I rate it as an optional article.
Optional. All right. You have the extremes. Timothy.
Yeah, I was important. I sort of agreed with your comments, John, that it's a little fluffy for what it actually comes out with, but it does have good data. And again, to Ashish's point, it doesn't say anything that we haven't talked about a lot, but we are also living in the bubble. And so I think, even if you go to most people and ask them, what are the top 3 use cases, we would probably immediately say customer service, software engineering. We'd pop out 3 or 4 right away that we know are just the top use cases right now. But I don't think most AI leaders, even who are in this a lot, could probably do that all that easily. So we have to remember there's this huge gap between those of us who are really paying attention to this at the detail level and the average leader who's got a day job and is really just worried about getting 1 application, 2 applications, 10 applications, whatever it is. They're just trying to get funding and get things across the finish line. So I think this is useful for them. So I could have my arm twisted into essential. It's hard for me to give an essential to such kind of a wordy article that doesn't say all that much, but I think it's at least important.
Gosh, where are you?
I was on important, John, not essential, but important.
All right, Paul. I would bet $100 you're not going to say essential here.
No, this is absolutely optional. I mean, this is the AI leader is trying to get his organization move faster. He or she's sitting in Miami, and a hurricane of change is coming. And if the hurricane is a category 4, category 5, it doesn't matter. It's a world of change. So this is at that categorization of the change. So optional, in my view.
I don't know. I've done a lot of work with biopharma and pharma, and I tell you, pharma folks look out 5-10 years. I mean, they're looking at, they're looking at this issue of R&D productivity is front and center at the top of the house every day, and the budget may not sit in the IT department, but the R&D department has big IT budgets to do this stuff. So I don't know. I haven't done this in some time, but I'm using the power of the chalk here, baby. I'm going essential on this one.
The audience is supporting you, John. Vivek and others are out there. So,
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's interesting, though, the big opportunity in life sciences, because most people don't understand it. I mean, there is a big opportunity if you can get better candidates, but in fact, that's the tiniest part of the pipeline. Most drugs fail far after they've become hits, as they're called. The real problem is medicinal chemistry, clinical trials, the long tail of things that has to get done, what we call the wet science, the really wet science. And it's interesting that there's not much, as far as I've been able to tell, of application of this technology to that area. And I think there are lots of opportunities. So anybody pre-consulting, anybody wanting to create a business in life sciences, go for medicinal chemistry and down the pipeline. Let the R&D is going to get much better, and it is going to have a huge impact.
Yeah.
But getting a drug to market that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think the in silico stuff is not that, if you go down farther, it's harder. But, consumer products and stuff, the idea of a synthetic audience, is pretty cool. Anyway, all right. We're going to essential. Gosh, if you could give us the top board, Paul, and any announcements?
No, just a couple things. I want to just highlight. We had another AI Woodstock networking event last night, which was great. It was super hot in Boston. It was like, I don't know, 104, some ridiculous thing. We had about 90 people here, but it really reinforced just how early many of the audience is. We talked about Ethan Mollick's article this week. about his top 3 models for individual productivity: Claude, OpenAI, and Gemini. That was very consistent with discussion last night and 2 or 3 other calls I've had this week here. So this whole notion that 90% of the people really getting involved, they're still in the early days. And to Tim's point, we are so far in the bubble, was really reinforced for that. And then Learning Lab on Monday coming up in here. We have Mark from Invoice Cloud who's going to walk through his business case for getting Copilot secure employee chatbots funded and approved at his company.
All right, Akash, Ashish, Tim, any other announcements? All right, we're looking at 1 essential, 3 importance, and 2 optionals. 3 optionals. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great AI day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.
Thanks. Good to see you.